Roman Empire was at the peak of its power. From the cold forests of Germania to the deserts of Egypt, millions of people lived under Roman rule. Magnificent roads connected distant provinces, powerful legions defended the borders, and the city of Rome stood as the richest and most influential city on earth. To the outside world, the empire looked invincible. But hidden behind the marble palaces of Rome, a deadly conspiracy was slowly taking shape. One that would eventually place one of history's most infamous emperors on the throne. This is the story of Nero, but before Nero could rule Rome, another emperor had to die. In 40 AD, Emperor Caligula ruled the Roman Empire. When he first became emperor in 37 AD, the Roman people celebrated. He was the son of the beloved general Germanicus, and many believed he would restore Rome's greatness. For a short time, the empire enjoyed optimism, but as the years passed, Caligula's rule became increasingly controversial. Ancient historians described him as unpredictable, cruel, and obsessed with absolute power. Modern historians believe some of these stories were exaggerated by his enemies. But one fact is beyond dispute. By 40 AD, many of Rome's most powerful men wanted him removed. Among those men was Cassius Chaerea, a respected officer of the Praetorian Guard. Although his duty was to protect the emperor, Caligula repeatedly humiliated him in public. Personal insults, combined with political frustration, slowly transformed loyalty into hatred. At the same time, several senators feared that Caligula's behavior threatened the stability of the empire. Secret meetings began taking place inside private villas and government buildings. Every participant knew the risk. If the conspiracy failed, they would face torture and execution. Yet they continued. While the conspiracy grew inside Rome, another quiet figure lived within the imperial family, Claudius. Unlike his nephew Caligula, Claudius avoided politics whenever possible. Because of his physical disabilities, many members of the royal family underestimated him. They saw him as a scholar rather than a leader. He spent his time studying history, law, and languages instead of seeking power. Ironically, this made him almost invisible to the conspirators, and that invisibility would soon save his life. On 24 January 41 AD, history changed forever. After attending public games, Caligula walked through a narrow passage inside the imperial palace. It was the perfect opportunity. Cassius Chaerea and several fellow guards attacked without warning. Within moments, the emperor lay dead. The ruler of the greatest empire on earth had been assassinated by his own protectors. News spread through Rome like wildfire. Citizens rushed into the streets, markets closed, soldiers blocked important roads, senators gathered in emergency meetings, fearing another civil war. For several terrifying hours, nobody knew who would rule the empire. Some senators hoped this was the moment to restore the Roman Republic. Others believed only another emperor could prevent complete chaos. During the confusion, Praetorian guards searched the imperial palace for surviving members of the imperial family. According to ancient historians, they discovered Claudius hiding behind a curtain, terrified that he would be the next victim. Instead of killing him, the soldiers did something completely unexpected. They declared him the new emperor of Rome. It was one of the most surprising moments in Roman history. Almost nobody had expected Claudius to become emperor. Even he seemed shocked by what had happened, but with the support of the Praetorian Guard, he accepted the throne and quickly secured control of the government before the Senate could organize resistance. Claudius immediately focused on restoring order. He rewarded the Praetorian Guard for their loyalty, strengthened the administration, and reassured the Roman people that stability had returned. Slowly, confidence in the empire began to recover. Then, another figure quietly stepped closer to the center of power. Her name was Agrippina the Younger. She was intelligent, ambitious, and determined to secure a future for her young son, Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, the boy history would remember as Nero. At first, few people paid attention to Agrippina. She appeared to be simply another member of the imperial family. But behind her calm appearance was an extraordinary political mind. She understood something that many Roman generals never learned. Power is not always won on the battlefield. Sometimes it is won inside the palace. Over the next few years, she quietly built relationships with influential senators, military commanders, palace officials, and members of the Praetorian Guard. Every alliance strengthened her position. Every political decision moved her one step closer to her ultimate goal. Then came the moment that shocked Rome. In 49 AD, Emperor Claudius married Agrippina. Because she was his niece, the marriage was highly unusual and required changes to Roman law before it could take place. Many Romans celebrated the imperial wedding, but others whispered that something far more important was happening behind the scenes. Soon after the marriage, Agrippina's influence became impossible to ignore. She appeared beside the emperor during official ceremonies, received honors never before granted to most Roman women, and gradually became one of the most powerful figures in the empire. Her next move was even more important. She convinced Claudius to appoint the famous philosopher Seneca as Nero's personal tutor. Under Seneca's guidance, Nero studied law, philosophy, history, leadership, and public speaking. Agrippina knew that if her son ever became emperor, he needed more than noble blood. He needed the education of a ruler. Finally, in 50 AD, Claudius officially adopted Nero as his own son. With a single decision, everything changed. Nero was no longer just Agrippina's child. He had become a legitimate heir to the Roman throne. Only one obstacle remained: Britannicus, the emperor's own biological son. As long as Britannicus lived, Nero's path to absolute power was uncertain. Inside the imperial palace, two young princes now stood side by side. One had been born to inherit the empire. The other had been carefully prepared to take it. Neither of them knew that the next chapter of Rome's history would begin with another mysterious death, one that historians still debate nearly 2,000 years later. By 50 AD, Agrippina had achieved what many believed was impossible. Her son Nero had been adopted by Emperor Claudius, educated by the famous philosopher Seneca, and married to Claudius's daughter Octavia. To the Roman people, these events appeared to be ordinary decisions made by a caring emperor. However, inside the imperial palace, many influential senators and nobles suspected that Agrippina was carefully shaping the future of the empire. Every decision seemed to strengthen Nero's position, while slowly pushing Claudius's own son, Britannicus, further away from the throne. Although no one openly challenged Agrippina, everyone understood that she had become one of the most powerful figures in Rome. As the years passed, Emperor Claudius continued ruling successfully. He expanded Roman influence in Britain, improved the empire's administration, and strengthened its economy. His reign brought stability after the chaos that had followed Caligula's assassination. Yet while the empire appeared peaceful from the outside, a silent struggle for succession continued behind the palace walls. Britannicus was growing older and was expected to inherit the throne once he reached adulthood. This created a serious problem for Agrippina. She had spent years preparing Nero to become emperor, but as long as Claudius lived and Britannicus remained the legal heir, her entire plan could fail. Then, in October 54 AD, everything changed. Emperor Claudius suddenly fell ill after attending a royal banquet. Within hours, his condition became critical, and before long, the ruler of the Roman Empire was dead. The official announcement stated that the emperor had died from natural causes. Considering his age and health, many people accepted the explanation. But almost immediately, rumors began spreading through Rome. Whispers filled the streets, the Senate, and even the military camps. Some claimed that Claudius had been poisoned during the banquet. Others believed that someone close to the emperor had secretly arranged his death. Ancient Roman historians later wrote dramatic accounts suggesting that poisoned mushrooms had been served to Claudius, but no physical evidence has ever been found to prove the story. This became one of the greatest mysteries in Roman history. Did Agrippina poison Emperor Claudius to secure Nero's future? Was it merely political gossip invented by her enemies? Or did the aging emperor simply die of natural illness? Nearly 2,000 years later, historians still cannot answer these questions with certainty. The truth disappeared with those who witnessed the emperor's final hours, leaving behind only conflicting accounts and endless speculation. Whatever the truth, Claudius's death immediately changed the future of Rome. Before anyone could organize support for Britannicus, Agrippina acted with remarkable speed. She secured the loyalty of the Praetorian Guard, informed key government officials, and ensured that Nero was proclaimed emperor without delay. At only 16 years old, Nero became the ruler of the most powerful empire in the world. Crowds gathered across Rome to celebrate the young emperor, believing that a new era had begun. Nero appeared confident, educated, and generous, and many citizens hoped he would become one of Rome's greatest rulers. During the first years of his reign, Nero relied heavily on the advice of Seneca and Burrus, the commander of the Praetorian Guard. Together, they helped guide the young emperor through the responsibilities of governing an empire that stretched across 3 continents. Taxes remained stable, trade continued expanding, and peace was maintained throughout much of the Roman world. For a brief moment, it seemed that Agrippina's ambitious plan had produced exactly the ruler Rome needed. Yet behind the celebrations, danger still remained. Britannicus was alive. Although he had lost the throne, many Romans still believed that Claudius's biological son was the rightful heir to the empire. His existence alone posed a threat to Nero's position. Inside the palace, supporters of Britannicus continued watching every move made by the young emperor. Agrippina understood that as long as Britannicus lived, Nero's rule could never be completely secure. The Roman Empire had entered a new chapter. Claudius was gone, Nero now wore the imperial crown, and one of history's greatest mysteries remained unsolved. But an even darker chapter was about to begin. The young emperor, who had been carefully prepared for greatness, would soon face betrayal, family conflict, and decisions that would forever change his name in history. The throne had finally become Nero's. The question was no longer how he gained power. The real question was what kind of emperor he would become. Although Nero's reign began with hope and celebration, the peace did not last long. As he grew older, he gradually distanced himself from the people who had helped him gain the throne. His relationship with his mother, Agrippina, became increasingly hostile. The woman who had spent years building Nero's path to power expected to continue influencing the empire, but Nero wanted to rule without anyone controlling his decisions. Their disagreements became public, and rumors spread throughout Rome that mother and son no longer trusted each other. In 59 AD, Agrippina died under mysterious circumstances. Ancient historians claimed that Nero ordered her assassination after a failed attempt to kill her aboard a specially designed collapsing boat. Whether every detail of this story is true remains uncertain, but one fact is clear. Agrippina's death shocked the Roman world and permanently changed Nero's reputation. The emperor who had once been admired was now feared. As the years passed, Nero became increasingly interested in music, theater, and grand public performances. He believed he was a gifted artist and often appeared before audiences, something that many Roman nobles considered beneath the dignity of an emperor. While some ordinary citizens enjoyed the festivals and entertainment, many senators believed Nero was neglecting the responsibilities of ruling the empire. Political tension continued to grow, but nothing would damage his reputation more than the disaster that struck Rome in the summer of 64 AD. One warm July night, flames suddenly appeared in the crowded districts of the capital. Strong winds quickly carried the fire through narrow streets lined with wooden buildings. For nearly a week, the Great Fire of Rome consumed homes, temples, markets, and public monuments. Thousands of people were left homeless, and large parts of the city were reduced to ashes. The disaster became one of the most famous events in Roman history. Almost immediately, another mystery was born. Who started the Great Fire of Rome? Some Romans believed it was a tragic accident, common in ancient cities where open flames were used every day. Others claimed that enemies of the empire had deliberately set the fire. but the most famous accusation was aimed at Nero himself. Ancient writers later claimed that the emperor wanted to rebuild Rome according to his own vision and therefore secretly ordered the city to be burned. They even wrote dramatic stories that Nero watched the flames while performing music. Modern historians, however, remain deeply divided. Some evidence suggests Nero was actually outside Rome when the fire began and later organized relief efforts for the victims. The truth has never been proven, making the Great Fire one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. After the disaster, Nero launched an enormous rebuilding program. Wider streets, stronger buildings, and improved fire regulations transformed the appearance of the capital. At the same time, he ordered the construction of the magnificent Domus Aurea, or Golden House, a luxurious palace unlike anything Rome had ever seen. While some admired its beauty, many believed it symbolized the emperor's growing obsession with wealth and personal glory. Public opinion slowly turned against him. Meanwhile, another crisis was unfolding far from Rome. In 66 AD, the province of Judea erupted into open rebellion against Roman rule. Political tension, heavy taxation, and religious conflict led to the first Jewish revolt. Nero appointed the experienced general Vespasian to crush the uprising. Vespasian and his son Titus achieved significant victories, but before the war could end, events in Rome took another dramatic turn. By 68 AD, Nero faced revolts across the empire. Powerful governors withdrew their support, military commanders declared their loyalty to rival leaders, and even the Praetorian Guard abandoned the emperor. Realizing that his reign was over, Nero fled the capital. Alone and surrounded by enemies, he took his own life on 9 June 68 AD. According to ancient tradition, his final words were, "What an artist dies in me." Whether those were truly his last words remains uncertain, but they became one of the most famous quotations in Roman history. Nero's death ended the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the imperial family founded by Augustus nearly 100 years earlier. His fall threw the Roman Empire into chaos, beginning the turbulent Year of the Four Emperors when Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and finally Vespasian fought for control of Rome. The empire survived, but the dynasty that had ruled since the birth of the Roman Empire had come to an end forever. The story of Nero remains one of history's most fascinating tragedies. He began his reign as a young emperor welcomed with hope, guided by wise advisors, and supported by one of the most ambitious women in Roman history. Yet ambition, suspicion, and absolute power slowly transformed his rule into one remembered for conspiracies, family betrayal, mysterious deaths, rebellion, and the unforgettable Great Fire of Rome. Even today, historians continue debating the greatest mysteries of his reign. Was Claudius really poisoned? Did Nero order Agrippina's death? Was he responsible for the Great Fire? These questions remain unanswered, ensuring that the rise and fall of Nero continues to captivate the world nearly 2,000 years later.